Okay, we're back for more Eric Hoffer. This time we're going to talk about parts 2 and 3, right?
Yes, right.
But I think we're not going to be able to get through all of it this time. I want maybe we'll see. We'll get as far as we can get, I guess. But definitely we're going to talk about part 2. And I guess just in general, part 2, right, was about the different types of people who are kind of prone to frustration.
Yeah, why don't we just let Eric Hoffer do the talking himself? Right? Why don't we do that just for the beginning, right? It's about the kinds of people that join mass movements. And his preface he has a way of turning a phrase, and he's crystal clear, right? This first paragraph is just great. I like how he's trying to troll you here a little bit too, right? There is a tendency to judge a race, a nation, or any distinct group by its least worthy members. Though manifestly unfair, this tendency has some justification, for the character and destiny of a group are often determined by its inferior elements. Boom.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is where he kind of lays out who are going to be more welcome to mass movements, and he says, well, in a society there are basically 3 parts. There are the superior individuals, or the successful individuals, I suppose you could say, the people that have succeeded in the society, and then he calls them the inert mass, for the middle class, basically. Yeah. The inert mass, and then there are the, well, let's just put it bluntly, the failures.
Yeah.
The people that couldn't fit into society. And those are going to be although he says there are people that are frustrated are going to be in every class, the ones that are going to be more open to being in mass movements are going to be the failures.
Oh, yeah.
Which makes sense. They have the most to gain by overthrowing the status quo. All right. I love that introduction.
Me too. I thought it was great. I thought it was, covering this whole section, I thought it was, you could throw it back to Epictetus a little bit, where he kind of starts when he says, like, suffering. It's not suffering per se that's driving these people who've been rejected, these people who failed in society. It's not suffering per se that's driving them to their mass movements. Because, like Epictetus said, I think he would follow this, right? Suffering that seems rational to you doesn't lead you to frustration. It's suffering that seems unnecessary, irrational to you. Suffering that maybe for some reason you want something you can't get, or you think you deserve something you can't get it. This is the suffering that really gets to you. I mean, and a lot of these groups who are put in this, like, when he talks about the poor, it's not the people who have been poor forever. It's the people who are just become poor, and they tasted better things in the past, or as people who are at the cusp of something, right?
Or they're climbing out of poverty.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're people who see the ability to change the world is within their grasp.
Yes.
Right. I really like that. I think it's really one of the most important things to remember. It's because, poverty can't be the only thing that causes frustration and crime in a society.
Yeah.
Because, Europe's been poor for a long, long time. And it's not as if it was, just rife with crime to the point that it was unlivable. It's just that the peasants didn't think they had any right to ask for any more.
Yeah.
And even if they asked, they probably couldn't have even gotten it.
Yeah.
There was nothing to do for them.
I mean, maybe it just seemed, like he mentions too, and it just seemed so far. I mean, this desire is just so far off, and there's just so much other stuff that they might need for maybe even first or before that. So it didn't even seem within the realm of possibility. And I think a lot of these people he points out, for some way or another, for some reason or another, they see the goal within the realm of possibility, but it's been blocked by something.
Yeah. Like, a lot of this, I thought, especially with the rising poor or the misfits or even minorities, he kind of lumps in with the losers, the loser end of society. A lot of it comes with rising expectations, I suppose you could say.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, I wanted to put a lot of book 2, I kind of wanted to put it under the subheading, almost, maybe this is too existentialist of me, but a lot of it emerges just from like a burden of freedom. Maybe the more you see yourself, maybe you're not, but the more you see yourself as in control of your life, the more you see yourself as free, the more you see yourself as responsible, and the more dangerous it is when like you can't do something, and when you fail, then that burden of freedom is on you if you see yourself as making the choices to determine your life, right? You seem to look suckier and suckier every time you fail because you're the one screwing up.
Yeah, it seems like he's suggesting that the most painful thing in the world is to have knowledge of your failure, to be totally and utterly responsible for the failures in your life.
Yeah.
It seems like something that's totally unbearable, or in his analysis, is unbearable to a vast majority of the people, and
Yes.
I think he's right.
Yes, yeah. And yeah, I mean, even like this, that's why it works well with these newly poor. I mean, I guess people who are newly poor, maybe something happened, right? They made some weird investment, or they screwed up somewhere and they lost all that cash, and now it's gone. You're kind of kicking yourself. You're like, oh God, I'm a loser now. I'm terrible. And things were wonderful at one time, and if only they could be that way again. I kind of want to put the new poor. I guess in general. Maybe no. But I mean, I think not the new poor, but the rising poor also. With like people, I want to say there's like one group among all these different groups he analyzes. I would say their problem is they're so close to the object of desire, but they can't reach it for some reason. Like, I want to put them in with the misfits too, right? Like people who are just he has this whole category of misfits, and people who were maybe creative at one time, but their creativity dried up, or for some reason or another they can't get the benefits of from society, even though they can get a lot of other stuff. They can't compensate for that one thing that they want. And I don't know, like I think this is where this kid fits in, this Elliot Rogers guy. I think he's one of these misfits.
Yes, I definitely put him in with the misfits.
He just couldn't get the one thing he wanted.
Yeah, I mean, look at the car he was driving. Look at the posh kind of life he led. Son of a famous director. He's got money and everything. And he's missing basically one thing. And one, let's just put it bluntly, not so significant thing. He hasn't had sex yet, and he's only 22. But to him, this is just a failure of a life. His life has failed.
Yeah.
He's so close, and yet he never can get the one object of his desire. Right? But he's got everything else, right? He's got so many other things. He just doesn't have that one thing.
Yeah.
And that's what made it painful.
I mean, when you watch his video too, which is in our playlist too, but you can. This is a spoiled identity. You can just tell when he's talking, like this lack of this, like he, at his core, he really considers himself a total and abject failure in life. I mean, he's kind of come around and he's like, I'm the superior male now and something, but I think this destroyed him, right? This made him despise himself and hate himself for a long time. I think he considered this like the goal of life. I mean, I think this is what a spoiled identity looks like. If only there was a mass movement around to pick him up, I think he could have easily been in some mass movement. He
was kind of part of the MRA.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but wasn't he like he was on this weird like anti-pickup artist site? I can't remember. There's these weird boards I read about anti-pickup artists.
He flirted with joining a movement.
Yeah.
But it wasn't enough to contain him, to satisfy him.
Yeah.
His I don't know. I mean, yeah, he kind of suffers from some kind of mental illness, perhaps, but his rage, his inflated sense of ego, his just outrageous sense of entitlement couldn't take even the mass movement wasn't enough for him. It exploded in a violent way.
Yeah, I mean, he just could not stand to see other people getting what he couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, his rage was at the men too. If you listen to the video, I mean,
yes.
He says, "You men who are with women, I'm going to kill you too. I'm going to kill you all." And he basically says, yeah, I mean, my life isn't worth living. It's kind of funny how he kind of tacitly admits defeat the entire time. Like, I've been ruined. I'm a loser. Basically, he says, like, I'm 22 and I haven't had any of the wonderful things of life. Right? I'm a ruined man.
Yeah.
And his anger is apparent, although comical and pathetic at the same time.
Yeah. So yeah, he's our misfit of the week. He would, I think, fit in this category of the book.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is what Eric Hoffer would say about a society that doesn't have, for example, arranged marriages, and where, you know, he's angry that women don't follow these kind of laws of cordiality, which limits competition, right?
Yeah.
Women, there's like a free competition for women now, right? I mean, like, the guy and the girl that kind of like each other the best now, they're the ones that get together. There's no social mores or you know, red tape to go through. So it's kind of an open playing field. It's free competition, and that's what he couldn't take.
Yeah.
He couldn't take the judgment of the free competition that he was not. Well, he took it to mean that he was not an acceptable human being.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of started to judge himself by the ruler too. I mean, well, I'm sure there are many things in society that do kind of say, "Oh, this is the judge, this is the ruler, this is the criterion for a man." But I think he definitely fell into that trap for his own detriment quite a bit. If only he had read some Epictetus. Oh.
Right? He could have been masturbating in a tub with
Diogenes?
Diogenes, right? That could have been the story about him. But no,
yeah,
he really did choose to totally accept the standards of a prevailing cultural norm, right? Awesome men get tons of women, right? That is totally pure propaganda and a lie. And I mean, like, he's unable to even recognize the difference between kind of the fantasy world of television, and reality. I mean, like, maybe it's
maybe he was too young, right? Like, he couldn't see through this. Like, I mean, the older you get, the more you see that it's not like that at all. I mean, really, this is all illusion, right? I mean, maybe you watched way too many movies where they cut all the really boring stuff, right? That's, you know, it's mostly that, really. I
mean, I shouldn't say this, and don't take this the wrong way, but sex is overrated. By that I don't mean sex is a bad thing. I think it's a great thing. I want more of it.
Woo! Me too.
But it's not the standard of a good life.
Yeah.
It is not the standard of what makes you a great person.
Yeah. Oh, definitely not. Yeah, I think he thought so, though. Maybe it's because he never did it, though. So, you know.
Yeah, that he never had it. So therefore you know, it's kind of funny. It's like Hoffer says too about, like, we're gonna jump ahead here a second, but I want to read this part. It was so good. Hang on a second. I love this part. It's about things not had. I love this part. Things which are not. Such a great line. We are less ready to die for what we have or are than for what we wish to have and to be. And he says this great line: in all ages men have fought most desperately for beautiful cities yet to be built and gardens yet to be planted. Well, once you got it in your hands and you can taste it and you see, well, you know, it really... Once you've got it, you know, once you've got that great TV or that great house or that, you know, that you had that sex once or twice, you know, the sex thing, and you're kind of like, oh, that was it. I mean, it's all about, you know, Schaefer the Dark Lord's head. It's all about the anticipation, right?
Yes.
All the energy came from that anticipation. You built it up so much, and he built it up just so much. And then when you got it, you're kind of like, oh yeah, that. But I mean, like, when you don't have a kind of secure or happy life, no matter how many, you know, TVs you got, it's not going to work, right? It's not going to settle what's really going on.
Yeah, I would have liked to seen what would have happened if he had had sex, and where would he have gone from there?
He would have just been another jerk
Yeah.
producer's son, and that would have been it. He would
Yeah.
have been nothing.
He would have actually started collecting BMWs, I guess.
Yeah. I gotta have one more B&W.
Wait, one more BMW, Dad. Come on.
He just goes and shoots up a B&W dealer.
Yeah. You denied me my BMW. It could have saved me if you just given me a BMW. A second one.
Yeah, I guess that the real truth behind, one of the truths behind this is that responsibility is one of the creating factors of frustration with your life.
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, maybe deep down he thought, I don't know, he felt responsible or he felt like it showed that he was a loser somehow. I mean, he seemed to take, or he seemed to feel that he shouldn't be treated in this way, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, for some reason this part of it is so contradictory to me because he in a way had to accept that the system was fair,
Yeah.
right? That's why he judged himself kind of worthless.
Yes.
And he was so angry, because if in his very soul he believed it wasn't fair, I mean, he still had an excuse, a lie to tell himself. Like,
Yeah.
well, you know, what are you going to do? I'm living in an unfair world. But I think somewhere deep down, he totally incorporated this standard inside of him, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so too.
Because, you know, the one thing to crush a failure is to tell them that they got crushed fairly.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, if he had really believed that the game was rigged against him, I don't know. I mean, the anger at least would have been directed somewhere else, right? I mean, not at least not at the girls who were rejecting him. Some kind of anger at the system. I don't know what, but
yeah. So I don't know. I thought that would be an interesting video to add on to this one. And I don't know, it seems like Hoffer says, like, one of the, and I think he's right, like, maybe people that are potential criminals can kind of get swept up in mass movements, but in this case, it didn't seem to work, or it wasn't enough for him to catch him up in that. So
he couldn't forget, like, yeah, he just could not forget about himself. He was just so strong.
Yeah, I think he was one of these very isolated people, though.
Yeah.
There was no community there to back him up, and everywhere, again, he couldn't see the fantasy from the reality. Everywhere around him, he thought everyone was having this orgy every night, sex party, and like he couldn't take the excess pleasure of the world. Like, how dare you all have fun and not me? Right? I deserve to be having fun too. I just it's so telling when he says, "This is the time when I'm supposed to be having pleasure," and I'm like, I just want to tell him, no, there's never a time when you have pure pleasure.
Yeah.
Your pleasure is always going to be mixed with disappointment and anxiety. What do you think about that? Now kill yourself.
I know. Wow, that is the sad truth, but very true. Yes. Oh my God. Oh well. I guess he'll never figure that out.
Yeah. Didn't work out. I mean, I say I kind of, one of the things I liked about this section was that it doesn't work perfectly, but it seemed like this sense of entitledness or expectations kind of work like gravity, right? Is like the closer you get to your desire, the stronger it gets, so that when you're really, really close, it almost makes you explode. But when the desire is far, far away, or even impossible, gravity ceases to function.
Yeah.
It kind of works like that. And sometimes he says, like, Christianity, when it was just forming, they said that the world was going to end, right? So you got to act now. You got to believe now. And so the desire, the new world was coming. It was this close. And then they're like, oh no, wait a minute. That's right. Message from God. The world's not going to end.
Yes.
That was totally like, we were just...
whole that within your generate, that was all metaphorical.
Yeah, we were just yanking your chain there. Now it's like way in the distant future, so they put a huge hope way in the distant future, which still has enough gravitational pull to pull you along a little bit, but it doesn't have the power to heap the believers up like it used to, right?
Mm.
Not a perfect kind of metaphor for this, but I thought it kind of worked similar to gravity.
I like it. He also mentioned, so there was the people who's really close to the object of their desires, people who made the wrong choices. He also mentioned that when groups are breaking down.
Yeah.
I like it. It's kind of like, hey, your individuals are showing. Right? Kind of, for some reason, the group can't maintain cohesion. It can't take away these people from themselves. It can't take away their responsibility. For some reason or other, people are not feeling covered by the group.
Right. It seems like, or at least in Hoffer's analysis, it seems like if you're successful, it's kind of maybe it's kind of like if you're beautiful and naked, right? You're like, if you're beautiful, you can be naked, and you'd be like, yeah, look upon me, world, and enjoy my beautiful flesh. But I mean, if you're kind of, well, like me, and you're naked, you kind of want to hide with all the other ugly people. Be like, yeah, I mean, I'm just blending into the ugliness in the background. So, yeah, why don't you beautiful people, you step in the front there. I'm just going to hide back here. Yeah. And I believe he has this great line, right, in 28, which is, so good. The passion for equality is partly a passion for anonymity. Oh, my God. Yeah. That is so great. And it led me to this kind of feeling that, like, because he talks about the two kind of freedoms that are going on here in this section in the poor, or especially in this section in the poor, right? Because he says, well, joining a group is a kind of a liberation too, right? That it is a liberation, but it's a liberation from the self.
Yeah.
It's a liberation from responsibility. It's a liberation from failure. Yeah. It's a liberation from fear of death, from being alone. Whereas freedom is the freedom to act. It's the freedom to think freely, to have a self, right? So there's kind of two contrasting senses of freedom going on between these two ways of life. There's a freedom from and a freedom to. This is kind of getting into typical philosophy stuff, which is a positive and a negative freedom, right? Yeah. That are both competing with each other, and both of them are kinds of liberation. Right, liberation from the pain of judgment and failure, and the pain of having to choose. And the scary thing, and I don't think he's wrong about this, is he basically says, yeah, most people would pretty much rather have that.
That's what he kind of insinuates. He said, like, or at least a small minority that would be people who would be kind of really frustrated, but most of the people would be just fine.
Yeah, they'd be happy with just being equal and not sticking out at all.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make any comparisons to where I am right now, but it's painfully obvious sometimes.
It's interesting. I mean, like, there's a lot of fruitful area to think about. Like, I mean, maybe there's some areas people shouldn't stick out. Maybe,
yeah.
Like, for example, I don't know if you feel like everyone should be given college education. Okay. Yeah. Why not just eliminate all exceptions there?
Yeah, or to be controversial. I mean, like, what if you were to say, like, well, someone shouldn't be wearing Gucci bags in school? In school, the focus should only be intellectual kind of gymnastics, if you will. And
Plato.
I'm going to be Plato here. Intellectual gymnastics, music of the mind. And you shouldn't be thinking about externals, right? These kind of superficial externals. So, yeah, put your uniform on and stop bitching, right, about it.
All right, so your school's going to be like the Stoa.
Yeah.
It's going to be the Stoa.
I got to go to the Stoa. I said it, so now we can sell it.
Yeah, right. That's ours. Trademark, copyright.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that's right. I mean, doesn't a lot of this remind you of Plato? Sometimes.
Oh, I don't know why. After our talk last week, I just sat thinking about the bronze-souled people. I was like, isn't this, like, in a weird way, aren't we, like, discussing a lot of the bronze-souled people? I mean, Well, I remember reading the Republic, and we're kind of like talking about the Bronzeville people and like how they ruled by desire according to Plato, and I mean the metaphor doesn't work on some levels, but I mean like I kind of like even in this he says like the function of a mass movement is to cover up and take away a spoiled existence. It's not the doctrine. It's not the truth. It's not even the actual fixing of problems. It's just this kind of these people are frustrated and upset, and they don't care about the truth. They don't care about the dogma per se. They just can't take the pain anymore of their existence.
Yeah, I mean, isn't the frightening thing is that, I mean, and I'm totally with Hoffer on this. A lot of these are completely irrational, even if they are rational, right? Even if they have rational goals, they're based on, well, quote unquote, irrational passions, right? Well, in other words, by that I guess I mean passions that aren't concerned with the truth or falsity of the doctrine. They're doing something totally different.
Yes.
They're erasing the individual selves, right? Another thing that reminded me of Plato, and I want to go back to this right after this, but another thing that reminded me of Plato was the two cities.
The fever city and the city of the barren city. Because when he's talking to the really abject poor, he said the abject poor. Yeah, it reminded me of that too. The abject poor finding like a meaningful existence. This was the city Socrates proposed, right? And Glaucon was like,
The city with the fever, and then the city, right? And for Plato, he kind of wants this kind of city where everything is just meaningful. And maybe he anticipated these, I don't know, frustrations that come from having and not having, and that later comes back in another example of when he says the two cities inside of the republic. Remember, he says don't put two cities inside of your city, right? And I guess I like how Hoffer kind of backs up Plato here a little bit, because Plato just said, you know, that if you put a rich class and a poor class in a city, this was the oligarchs, right? Yeah. You're getting ready for a revolution in your city, but I guess what Plato really should have said is that, well, that's not enough, right? The poor have to feel justified in taking from the rich, right? They have to see the rich as either thieves or they are entitled to some of what the rich have.
Yeah, he seemed to suggest like the oligarchs would be, like, you know, walking around with the normal people, and normal people would just kind of like look at them, and like one day it just comes to them like, wow, we could take everything from them. They're so weak.
I mean, maybe it's something like this. I mean, this is Hegel's famous joke, although other people tried to steal it from him, but he made sure no one stole it from him. That's the pettiness of Hegel sometimes, right? But anyway, he once said that no man is a hero to his valet. So when maybe Plato kind of thought, well, maybe seeing these rich up and close, right? They would kind of know that they weren't the spiritual honor-bound people that they would really like to look up to. They were just kind of greedy people.
Yeah.
And they would see that as a sign that they were basically just like them. Only they didn't have money.
Yeah.
So they're going to take it.
And lucky, I guess. Yeah.
That's right. It was just a matter of luck.
At that point, you got problems, yeah.
Sorry. I want to go back to that thing where we were talking about the irrationality of mass movements. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes.
Because, I don't know, like it just kind of struck me that, and this is not a new or original point, but I mean, just reading this entire thing, I mean, I don't know why, but when I read all of this, it actually frightened me a little bit. It was frightening and dark. To me, it was frightening and dark at the same time, and I felt this kind of wave of irrationality running through the entire book. And I mean, like, how about this, though? I mean, I guess I want to mix this up with the make-believe section. So, do you want to talk about something before make-believe?
Well, yeah, yes, I do. But I do want to get. I know where you maybe. I do want to talk about make-believe too. But just in this section 34 about this kind of this irrationality per se, like
section
34. This was in section 34. I don't know why of all sections, section 34 I picked out for this. But I mean, this is here. It's here in general, but it just reminded me of like sometimes I have conversations with people like I mean just normal conversations like, hey, why are you an atheist? And then I say, well, I just don't find any convincing arguments for the other side. And then like just it always comes back many times. You always get back, well, but you'll be unhappy if you're an atheist. I mean, okay, but I mean, like, I mean, that doesn't refute the idea, right? You know what I mean? Like, the idea is somehow refuted if it makes you unhappy, or like, if you don't have that support network of the church, right? How can you live? If you don't have that support, if you don't feel like you're part of God's plan, a cog in His big machine, right? Then this idea is refuted on the face of it, right? And
that is such a superficial psychology, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, God,
you should believe that because it makes you feel good. How do you do that? Someone tell me how on earth you do that.
Exactly right.
You should believe that there's a stack of money over there because it'd make you feel better. Oh, okay.
Wait, I already have it all in my hand.
Right?
What are you talking about?
You can't do that. I mean, you just physically can't do it. I mean, what do you do? Anyway, continue. Sorry,
But it just really reminded me of like. This, I mean, like, this is a kind, wow, I mean, I'm using this word really loose, a kind of irrationality, though. I mean, like, in the kind, maybe the type, a kind of a realistic kind of the type he's talking about. Like, I mean, I think what these people are afraid of is the fact that they will lose this connection, the fact that they won't feel part of this group anymore, and it won't give them that support that they need through their troubles, through their pain in their life, right? And this refutes the idea. So because my life is terrible, your idea is refuted, right? Kind of. I mean, this is the kind of the inner logic going on here, and I mean, as a modern day, or as just a really specific manifestation of this, I think it fits. I don't know. What do you think? I think this is kind of in what the zone he's talking about.
Oh,
no?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
It kind of reminded me like of the human ulti human. Like Nietzsche went off about this in Human ulti human quite a bit. Like these people. And I was going to go back and get a couple passages from Human ulti human, but like I just didn't have time. But he talks about this in Human ulti human in a couple passages about this type of person who's always, trying to judge the idea by its happiness, and like this idea didn't work because it didn't make you happy, right? If this idea is refuted because it didn't make me happy, right? Well, or maybe it didn't make me feel like belonging. I belong to a part of a group or something, and.
Yeah, I mean, I like how Hoffer kind of switches the dialogue. He's like, well, I mean, you could be miserable, utterly miserable, but as long as you're part of a group of a lot of people suffering miserably along with you, well, things are pretty good.
Yes, exactly right.
Because what matters is not per se your individual suffering, because there's no you anymore.
Yeah.
When you're in that group, there's no self anymore. So the suffering is not yours alone. The failure is not yours alone, and you're not the be-all and end-all of the universe. You're part of something that's eternal.
Yeah.
It's bigger than you are.
And yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, these are just like these are at their core. These are just people who are frustrated or have been frustrated, maybe by themselves or by the structure of society, even. I mean, just to go like, let's take it in a really crazy place, kind of a dangerous. Let's take it to a really dangerous place. As I was thinking about this, has kind of occurred to me. Like, you remember that Dave Chappelle routine where he says he talks about men and women. He talks about the difference between men and women, and like he says, you know what women want, you know what women really, really want. Women want to be comfortable, right? And like he's like, you go to their house and they got all this comfy furniture and stuff like this, and there's all these like kind of very shallow books too about like women don't want to fix problems, they just want to feel like their problems are being listened to and all this stuff. I don't know, like, when I read this, I just kind of started thinking, like, I kind of felt sad. Like, these are people who have been frustrated by society, frustrated by a lot of things, maybe, and they just want relief from that endless frustration. You know what I mean? Like, maybe there's some kind of a larger, I mean, if this is true, maybe there's a larger psychological thing going on here of just like some kind of structures in society that have been frustrating them and they can't take it anymore, so they just want an escape from this. It kind of made me sad a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, so much of this mass movement talk. I mean, a lot of it you could just cut the mass movement right off, and it's society. I mean,
Yeah.
it kind of just seems like, and it could be true that society is just a very old mass movement or a collection of worn out mass movements, um, and a lot of these seem to apply even to just groups in general, unified
Yes.
groups in general, and then mass movements just have a couple of sprinkles, a couple of deadly sprinkles on top of a unified thing,
Yeah.
and that's why this book has such a, despite the title being the true, on thoughts on the nature of mass movements. I mean, this book could very well be thoughts on the nature of society.
I know. I was even thinking about like things like people who watch football. Like, I don't know. Like, it always interests me, like a football fan who like is really happy when his team wins, and you're kind of like, well, you didn't do anything. We won.
Yeah.
We did. Like, okay. Like, what is the relationship between the fan and this right? It's gray. It's very gray, I think.
He's pretty close to there. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess it's kind of a, that's what I was saying like last week, there's kind of a low-level frustration running through. People are leading lives of quiet desperation.
Yeah.
And that's probably very true.
Yes.
There's this kind of low-level anger and frustration because, especially now when we have so much mass media and people are promised so much, and, we're finding out that we're not going to be movie stars, and we are very pissed off right on.
Wow. Okay. Yes.
I mean, Fight Club.
Switching movies. You're switching movies.
I'm switching movies.
Back to Fight Club now.
Because Fight Club was about kind of a mini mass movement.
Yes. I was totally unprepared though for your movie quote. Like,
okay. And we are very pissed off.
That's my only movie sound effect. Sorry.
That's Inception.
That's Inception.
Not Fight Club. I mean, it's the same exact thing happens in Fight Club in a way, right? I mean, the main character is leading a kind of a very empty, frustrated life, and he forms this, and he finds people that are, well, dying, frustrated, unused, empty, lower rung society, and he builds them up into something bigger than that. He rejects society's standards, and he tries to build he tries to destroy all of society and build a new one on top of it.
Yeah.
Which is Project Mayhem.
Wow. All right. I agree. It's interesting though. I applied this to Fight Club. Yeah, it is. He does start a mass movement though, doesn't he?
I mean, they even start losing their names.
Their names, right? Yeah, their names.
They don't have a name in Project Mayhem, and then when they die, their names are Robert Paulson. His name is Robert Paulson. And then, what's really interesting about Fight Club, I mean, the whole movie is just about a man who is lonely.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie resolves with him getting with oh God, what's her name? Yeah. The girl, right? Yeah. He was just kind of lonely and angry, and he works through that, and he finally finds someone who he can be himself with, right? And that's how the movie resolves, with also the destruction of all the buildings around him, and a kind of winking nod towards the mass movement. That was a pretty good mass movement, right? Wink, wink. Right? I'm not totally dissing this mass movement, am I? Right? Wink, wink. Right?
Unless the imagery is Freudian. Yeah.
So the mass movement is never dismissed, or even it's made to look very cool and very awesome. Right?
Yeah.
It's never made to look bad. I mean, the stuff that Tyler Durden says, I mean, it's pretty cool too. Yeah. You are not your jobs, right? Your Great Depression is your lives, right? Right.
Yeah.
But it really is just this kind of mass movement of angry people that are not utilized, and they are the misfits in the lower class of society.
Definitely. But we have to talk about make-believe.
Make-believe. So
you want to talk about make-believe? I kind of do too. I'm interested. What do you have to say about make? So let's just introduce it by saying mass movements. He goes on to part 3. It says mass movements use techniques to promote unified action and self-sacrifice. And by self-sacrifice, he means something along the lines of getting rid of yourself or forgetting about yourself. I mean, that's what he means by self-sacrifice, not like giving $10, but more like forgetting about who you are. So one of the means, the second one he identifies as the means of self-sacrifice or getting rid of the self is using make-believe. So what do you want to say about? I really like this point. This point's amazing. It provides a lot of thought. I mean, it's thought-provoking.
Yeah.
I want to say this.
This part really stuck out to me as being. It's kind of like throwing intellectual jabs at me left and right. Like,
yes.
This opening line is enough to make you be like, wow. I mean, yes or no, it's still wow. I mean, like, there is a need for some kind of make-believe in order to face death unflinchingly. To our real naked selves, there is not a thing on earth or in heaven worth dying for. That's already enough of a kind of a provocative line. So he kind of goes on to say here basically that people need to, well, mass movements are good at dressing people up in costumes and giving them nice roles to play to escape from themselves, and thus it's easier also to enact mass murder,
yes.
revolution, chaos, when you kind of feel like you're not you, but you're you in a Halloween costume, and you're fulfilling some kind of grand role in some kind of play. And somehow he's saying, like, I guess the reality of the world is kind of softened.
Yes.
Lessened. Reality is kind of slipped away. And you're just simply an actor playing a role, which is, wow, again, there's enough to chew on for just like a lifetime there, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, this is so, I mean, I want to, maybe if we have time in the future, I want to do Erving Goffman's The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life. This is one of the top 10 sociology books of all time, where there's like a vote a little while ago, and this was in the top 10. And this is this theory. He develops this theory of society, his metaphor for society is drama. And he locates everything into performance and dramatic performance in society. I mean, this is right here, this idea Erving Goffman kind of draws out.
In an age of mass media, it even kind of makes more sense. Who doesn't want to be Heisenberg? You know, who doesn't want to be Darth Vader? I know, I'm Heisenberg. I am the one that knocks. I mean, there's this attitude, right? But I don't know. I was struck. I was impressed by this passage, but I wanted to think about it more. So he's right, I think, when he says that costumes can sometimes take us away from ourselves and let us pretend to be someone else, like in a play. I mean, for example, you can play as Batman or some other superhero, or cosplay.
Yeah.
Right? You dress up as an anime character or some kind of superhero or something, you know, like Mr. Repsion, and you. What's interesting, you try to act like that character. Yeah. So, you know, when he dresses up as, what's his face? I forget. Deadpool. Deadpool.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't go and like do non-Deadpool things. He tries to act like Deadpool, or, you know, somewhat like Deadpool. And in Japan too, with cosplayers, they try to act like the character.
Yes.
That they're cosplaying, right? In general.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's an interesting thing, and that is one aspect of dressing up and putting on a mask.
Masks, yes.
Is that you can play the role of someone else. But, I mean, another thought kind of immediately comes to you, right? Sometimes costumes can let you be the person you really want to be, and act the way we want to, without the fear of the eyes of others, right? We can act foolish and go crazy with no consequences to our quote-unquote actual selves, right? Our physical, continuous social selves, right? So in other words, by putting that mask on, or let's put it a different way, going on the internet and being a jerk, I mean, like, some of that is like, well, it's my excuse now. I mean, like, I'm not my excuse, but it's, no one's going to know it's me, so I can do whatever I can let all of my base desires fly out. Or, for example, Bill Murray in Groundhog Day, right? Once the consequences are gone, well, I'm just going to eat every day. I'm going to sleep with a bunch of women. I'm going to steal money, right? Sometimes the mask does that. I mean, I do that. I mean, for Christmas, I'll dress something, you know, in Tokyo here, sometimes we dress up as Santas, and we walk around Tokyo as Santa. And you know what? When you're wearing a costume, you feel powerful. You feel, it's almost like a state of drunkenness, right? You feel like you can do anything. You can take on anything, and you don't care how stupid you act. You can just do whatever you want to do. It's a great feeling of power, right? So it's kind of torn here about, like, he's saying basically you're losing yourself.
Yes.
But when I put on a mask, I am becoming the me that I wanted to be already. So I kind of thought about this for a while. I was like, well, I mean, how about this, right? I guess, could we say, and it's kind of a depressing thing, and could it be that mass movements are just a poor legitimization to do the horrible repressed things we always wanted to under the guise of respectability? Unleashing the destructive hatred under a mask that makes us born again. He talks about being born again, right? Into a responsibility-free new self, right? An unrepressed new self. So it is a new self in the sense that it's totally unrepressed. It's free from responsibility, and that's the freedom from again. Right? There is a kind of rebirth there, even in this different sense of not losing yourself, but being born again into a different kind of self that is completely they can't be held responsible for the actions that you take in a certain way.
I like this. I do like this, like, because I struggled. I have to admit, I struggled here too. Because I guess maybe is the mass movement kind of wants this though. So like, let's say your costume is soldier, right? So or whatever, but so we'll say soldier. So the mass movement says, you are our soldier, right? And I guess the thing is, for the mass movement to, how should I say, lift the burden of responsibility, to remove responsibility, you have to fill that role of soldier, right? You can't wear the soldier costume and start serving kebabs, right? You are fulfilling that part because the group told you to do that part. And then by fully identifying with that part, I guess the thing is, like, yeah, maybe...
Doesn't it seem like, though, that sometimes some of it is just, it's their really convenient excuse to be cruel?
Oh, yeah. I agree. I think some people want to be cruel, so maybe they get a job where violence is allowed.
It's dressed up in a different, fun way. For example, in a police officer's uniform. Oh!
Yes. I mean, it happens. It happens. People, they want to do violence and they can't, so they find a legitimate outlet for their...
I mean, but this kind of skews what he's saying, right? I mean, he's kind of saying they're dressing you up and sending you off as a soldier to battle. Like, now you're a soldier. Or like when he talks about the people of London acted heroically under a hail of bombs, because Churchill cast them in the role of heroes. Which, again, I think he's right about that, but maybe by casting them in that role, he allowed different feelings to escape from them, to be a kind of come out of them, to come to the surface more easily.
I agree. I guess maybe the issue I had with this kind of follows along this point, because I mean, the thing is, like, the wording is very provocative, and like, I'm just gonna follow the wording straight. I think it's really interesting. I think maybe Hoffer might have something to say back to this, but like, where he kind of hints at or suggests that, like, what the self you have now, this naked self, the one that wouldn't die for anything, is the self now, right? And there's almost like, he doesn't say this at all, but like, if you took this as the real self and all the dress up as the fake self, I don't buy that. Because the self you are right now is not what's most real. I mean, you need these other things. You need the past and the future, and I think this is what some of these theatrics do, right? These theatrics are meaningful. Theatrics or costumes or music or whatever. These theatrics are meaningful, so they allow you to connect, to do some things you wanted to do, right? And not take you away sometimes. I mean, I do get his point though
I
about
know.
maybe somebody wants to disappear in the role of soldier, right? And I'm not me. I'm a soldier, right? I'm a soldier in the movement. I
So
fully
it's like,
identify.
what is it? Bad faith.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's my job, soldier, and that's me, soldier. That's it. There's nothing else. I fully identify with that role. I have no other responsibility. I mean, I think that's kind of what he's getting after, but I don't want to knock down this make believe. I think if we were to take this and then like take this as an attack on all quote unquote make believe, I think you'd run into this problem. This problem. This make believe as being fake or unreal or covering up and not allowing the self to exist within this realm of make believe.
You mean like you mean in my sense of like sometimes make believe actually allows you to be more you
Yes.
than life allows you to be you.
Yes. Exactly right.
I mean, there's that the calculating self that you have that you know that like you're gonna have to deal with all the crap for doing something stupid, but because you're behind a computer screen, it's time to let the demons fly, right? Like, be the troll you always wanted to be.
Yeah. I mean, even like taking it back to Plato again. Why does Plato keep coming up? I mean, even Plato like almost had a weirdly opposite view. He in book 10 in his like infamous attack on art, right? He almost suggested that viewing yourself through the lens of art, viewing yourself through the lens of theater, is what's going to remove you from the group. It's what's going to cut you off from the group. It's going to make you the hero in your own little drama. You're going to start trying little tears watching yourself
That's
do
right.
these things. Remember that he said like this is why he was hating on the art, right? He almost suggests the opposite via use of the theater or viewing yourself theatrically. So
Yeah, I mean, I get it. This section was provocative, thrilling, and excellent, at the same time troubling
yeah,
to me. I think this is something we'll have to keep in mind.
I agree. Maybe we can even touch on this next week if you have any good. Because you're right. I need time to think about because I love this section. I agree. It's totally stuck out, and this is really good stuff. Do you have anything about make believe, or should we just put that on hold for now?
No. I think we discussed that enough.
Okay. Then the last, maybe we'll do one last thing, which is a little bit. Let's touch on because maybe I want to touch on this next week too, because this is really interesting. I mean, the present, or he says like he suggests that self-sacrifice is done by kind of talking down on the present, like kind of looking down on the present, depreciating the present. I like where he's going with this. Kind of, I like to think about the relation of the past, the present, and the future a lot, and he comes at it a really interesting angle where he says like these mass movements are trying to get you to get rid of the present so you can focus on the future, which is very interesting. But I have to say, like, gave me pause too. Yeah. But I mean, I get maybe where he's going with this.
How about if I give a clear example of where I can be sympathetic to him? So how about this quote? Not only does a mass movement depict the present as mean and miserable, it deliberately makes it so.
Yes.
Okay, very provocative statement. How about this? Om Shinri Kyonjip, the Om cult in Japan. They said the world was hell, and they actually went about making it that way. I mean, they actually did it. They went and gassed people to show people that the world was bad.
Yes. Yeah, right. I mean, even what Nietzsche, like a long time ago, he said, "What Christianity's attempt to prove that the world is a terrible place has made it a terrible place." Right? Yes. Didn't he say that as one of his famous aphorisms? I mean, it's very true. I mean, this is what some of these mass movements go out and do. They kind of want you to get. I mean, it's interesting. He almost associates in the passage. He almost associates the present with the self, or the current self, which is an interesting move. And the desires in the self is emerging from the past. I mean, this is almost out of Heidegger a little bit. Like Heidegger almost associates emotions as coming out of the past. Yeah.
I understand where you're feeling like
I just,
hesitant.
I guess maybe my big problem is, and I really see where he's going with this. I think if you get trapped in this like whole like it's like forget yourself now. It's all for this amazing ideal in the future that who knows when it's gonna come, but you should just like you should forget everything now. Like what you know now is a lie, right? Trust us. We're gonna guide you to the glorious, glorious future. I mean, I can see the danger in that. I just see so many people running in the opposite, maybe not inside mass movements. Is this a mass movement? It's not in a mass movement per se, but I see so many people in bad faith or in self-deception running to the present, running, and this is why I don't know. I find this is what gave me pause. Like people kind of escape to the present and say, you know, I'm just being me. I'm just being me, right? And I don't like a lot of this talk either. I kind of want to find the middle ground between them. So I sat in this section for a long time.
I know this part is too sympathetic to the present. Whereas, how can the present be understood without the past and the future?
In the future, yeah.
What meaning can the present have without the past and the future?
I have no idea. I mean, I think he's aware of this. He's aware, like he mentions, he talks later about the liberal, the conservative, and the skeptic, and he says like they still cherish the present. And they don't want to get rid of it. Maybe his problem is just like the almost utter elimination of the present.
I mean, like, I guess there is a way for him that there can be a somewhat adequate joining of the past, present, and future. Mm-hmm. But these people are suffering from, like, I don't know, Tin Man syndrome. They don't have that middle part right there. Right. The heart of the present isn't there. And in doing that, they've kind of skewed themselves.
He delivered some really, interesting blows to the future. Like, I'm gonna have to say, I'm a Future fan. Like when I play Sonic the Hedgehog CD, I'm Future. Yeah. I'm there, even though it's really decayed in the future if you don't fix the past.
That was Dr. Robotnik.
Yeah, that was Dr. Robotnik, really. Yeah. But like, his examples are interesting. Like, faith in miracles is a rejection of the present. Interesting. Yeah. That's interesting. It's a rejection of the practical. Mysticism is a rejection of the present. That's really interesting. Like, the present is faded and distorted. How could we possibly know? There's this glorious other place out there where the truth is. We're in this kind of foggy zone right now. So you gotta, like, kind of jump out of this somehow and almost irrationally escape into the future. I like these points a lot. I think these are very powerful points for maintaining the present.
Yeah, like maybe we should take him at his word in the beginning of the book when he said there's going to be no judgments made here. Now, it feels like there are judgments being made all the time, but he does say historical awareness also imparts a sense of continuity, and that's what I want. Possessed of a vivid vision of past and future, the true believer sees himself as something that stretches endlessly forward and backward, something eternal, which is what I've felt for a long time. And that's what tradition does for people. It makes them come into contact with the eternal, with something bigger than themselves. And I don't know. And I can't believe that Hoffer would ever say, "Well, what we really should do is just live in the present constantly." Yeah. Just be like totally, we think about the future, nothing.
That's what I would love to sit down and talk with him about. He almost, I don't know, he jumps around. Sometimes he's just like this now self is just naked and helpless and just falls into every trap and it's grasping at everything it can just to live to the next day. This is maybe he would have sympathy to like stretching yourself into the future and going back into the past.
At least to a certain degree. Maybe his trouble is that stretch yourself into the past and the future, but don't destroy the present too, right? Yeah. Maybe he sees the sickness in the sense that you think that the present is just no longer worth living in, or it could be a symptom of something dangerous. I totally get it though, because this is my first reaction. I was like, as if the present needed any more defenders. Dear God.
Yeah, I know, Meg. I know. I mean, yeah, I agree. I find myself dwelling on how many people are like so fantastically in love with the present and their spontaneous emotions and drifting along in life is the ultimate life and all my whims are wonderful and I did it because it's my whim and that makes
YOLO.
YOLO, you only live once, like all this, like everything's in the present, everything's my whim. Uh, I get it though. I get it. Like maybe this is I want to talk. Maybe we talked before, like the wonderful "Let It Go" song that Disney will not stop playing on the TV these days, which is much better in context. Like, I mean, this kind of coming to the present can get you out of these ideologies, can get you out of entrapments, like maybe it can release you from like maybe I don't know some kind of ideology like anti-gay ideology.
Yeah, the ghosts of the past.
Yeah. So okay, if he's willing to, he's trying to bring in the present to dethrone ideologies.
I mean, but it does seem like it's also attempt at bad faith, though. It's just like, well, I'm transcendent. No, but you also have facticity, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you also existed in the past,
Yeah.
too, right? So, in a way, a running to the present, at least to me, a running to only the present is just as much of a sickness and a running away from maybe even the self.
Yeah.
Because the self doesn't exist in the moment.
Yeah.
That's really not where the self is either. So it seems like an equal running to me.
I agree. I totally agree. I find a lot of the self-deception in this category too these days. But we're talking about mass movements today, so
yeah, we're going all existentialist though.
Yeah. But that's as far as I want to take this. I want to think more about some of this stuff, and I want to discuss more about maybe
provocative.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. I mean, I'm going to be going back to this many times in the future. I can tell. This especially this part 3. But next time we can talk about hatred. Awesome. I want to talk about this section on hatred. It's going to be interesting.
Yes. That's going to be my favorite part, talking about hatred.
Yeah.
All right, that's well, all I have to say. But wow, this is one of these books that you really have to read. I mean, it's so clear and plain that it's just, and I think it should be a required reading.
Oh yeah, definitely.
For everyone. It's that good. All right, that's all for this week.
Yep.
Next time we'll tackle the rest of part 3.
Yes.
Till next time.
Next time.